Greetings, I am the Lion Clan Chief. Welcome again to the Lion Clan. I just want to start this video by saying thank you very much to my subscribers. You've got me up to 887 subscribers. We're on the road to 1,000. Jeez, I can't believe it, man. I'm so grateful. I'm so humbled, man. Like, you guys are awesome. I didn't think I would get this far so quick, but yeah, man, it just goes to show people have a thirst for African history. And yeah, man, many of us need to dig into it more and share it more. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, in today's video, we're going back to the BaKongo culture of the people of the Kongo Kingdom in what is today modern Angola, parts of the DRC, and so on. Now, this video will be jam-packed with a lot of information. So it will cover elite warriors in the BaKongo society that were knights. And when I say knights, I don't mean equivalent of knights. I mean actual knights in the European sense. And also their weapons, their swords of power, their symbols of authority, and how that ties in with the indigenous culture of the BaKongo Kingdom. So though they converted to Christianity, I used to assume that, oh my God, they threw away everything. They didn't care about their ancestors. Yeah, at one point I really didn't like the Kongo Kingdom. And forgive me, I was young. I was like 14 when I discovered it. Then I was like, why is this King Alfonso talking about like the letters he was sending to the Portuguese? I was like, this dude is a disgrace. But when you look into the history, when you look into the culture, when you look into their cosmogram, oh my God, it's so in depth, and they managed to tie the two religions together, and they did maintain their culture. So I respect the BaKongo, man. Yeah, as a Bantu of the southeastern side, I'm proud of him. Yeah, but you'll understand why in this video. So firstly, we'll cover the BaKongo Knights. Then we'll go into their swords of power and authority and how that ties in with their cosmological religion and cosmogram. Before we discuss the BaKongo Knights and their order, let me just clarify first that the Kongo Kingdom, before the Europeans arrived, had their own elite military units and of course military structure. Now, most of the military was made up of levies that were predominantly archers. However, the elite units were made up of swordsmen that carried shields. Now, the Portuguese, when they came into contact with these people, called them Adargueiros, which means shield bearer. Excuse my pronunciation, people from Portugal. Now, the name Adargueiros comes from the name of the North African shield called Adagara. This was a leather shield introduced into the Iberian Peninsula by the Moors. So the Portuguese began to use this amongst themselves, and also in the Spanish people and other Iberians as well. The Portuguese mentioned these Adargueiros, or shield bearers, having huge swords that were similar to Slovenian swords. So when they said Slovenian swords, they were referring to swords that you see in Hungary, Polish, swords that are based on or inspired by Eastern curved swords, like the swords of the, what can I say, the Mongols, the Huns, the swords that influenced the Middle East. Because before the Middle East started using curved swords, many of their swords were straight. Many of them had the cross symbol as well, like the cross guard, sorry, not cross symbol. Many people don't know that. So the swords that people were using in Prophet Muhammad's time, for example, many of them were straight. Many people don't know that. But anyway, I digress. So they were saying that their swords were similar to the swords that you see in this region of Eastern Europe amongst the Slavic people. Now, in a previous video, I covered the BaKongo and the Stonewall Rebellion, how the Kongo warriors that were taken to the Americas fought and how they knew how to use guns, how they knew how to write, and so on. So in that video, I clarified, going back to the 1490s, the BaKongo sent emissaries to the Portuguese, who then learned the Portuguese ways and so on, and a connection was made between the Portuguese and the Kongo Kingdom, which led to them being influenced. So many of these emissaries that were sent ended up joining knightly orders in Portugal. For example, the Order of Santiago, which is associated with Saint James the Greater, a patron saint of the Portuguese people. And also the Order of Christ, another knightly order, which is associated with the Portuguese, but I believe they were in other Iberian kingdoms and lands at the time. An example of a BaKongo who became a knight is Don Pedro de Sousa, who became a knight in 1512. He joined the Order of Christ. And a later knight called Luis Perez, who joined the Order of Santiago in the 1550s, I believe. Now, they were knights in Europe. Yeah. However, in the Kongo Kingdom itself, a branch of the Order of Christ was created. This was due to King Philip II of Portugal giving authorization to BaKongo kings to give knighthood under the banner of the Order of Christ in Kongo. So many chiefs, many elite warriors in the kingdom were actually knights in, like I said, in the European sense, not just being elite warriors, they were actually knights. Now, as I stated before, the Portuguese had a patron saint, which is Saint James the Greater. Now, the Kongo Kingdom, under King Alfonso II's reign, they adopted Christianity more intensely. So Saint James the Greater also became the patron saint of the Kongo Kingdom when they adopted it, because they say Saint James is associated with war and some battles. Like they call him the Moor killer. You know, the Moors in North Africa and West Africa, they call him the Moor killer, which is kind of strange, isn't it? That an African kingdom is adopting that. But anyway, I digress. So Alfonso had a struggle with his brother. So after that struggle, he claimed he had a supernatural experience that involved St. James the Greater. So because of that, St. James the Greater became the patron saint of the Kongo Kingdom. So it's likely that some Order of Santiago knights were in Congo, because some Portuguese people were living in Congo at the time, and some of them were obviously spreading their order, spreading their message, and so on. So it wasn't just the Order of Christ. Now, with the Kongo Kingdom adopting the Catholic religion to this extent and having knightly orders, they began to import some European styled weapons, and they also began to make them themselves as well. So they would imitate what the European swords looked like and made it themselves. These swords were called Mbele a Lulendo. Many of them were based on the 16th century design of the espada al ropera, which is like a rapier type of sword. So if you look at the hilt right here of this European sword and now look at the BaKongo made sword, that's where they were taking inspiration from. So these swords were swords of power in the BaKongo Kingdom. So knights would have these swords, and also elite chiefs, nobles, members of the royal family. The king himself would have this sword. But it's a culture that likely predates the contact with Europeans, because in the Kongo culture, certain objects are sacred and tied to ancestral veneration and ancestral influence on the world of the living, which I'll cover in a moment. As stated, the Portuguese, when they saw the Kongo Kingdom and the warriors with their swords, they did make a connection or a comparison with their swords looking like the swords of Slavic people, the swords of Eastern European that are curved. So many of their swords, after this, the swords of power were like that, they looked like that, and they also had certain guards which you would see on certain Slavic swords, as you're seeing here, like with this example. Now, the difference with the ones that were imported and the ones that were made in BaKongo is, as you can see on the BaKongo sword, the hilts were made from wood and ivory, and they were also anthropomorphic, which is tied to the Kongo cosmology, which I'll clarify in a moment how exactly. So like I said, with the Kongo Kingdom, they pretty much adopted this religion on their own terms, as you will see with their religion and also even some of their coat of arms or symbols that are tied to Europe, but you see a link with their original heritage, their original religion. Now, there are many examples of the Mbele a Lulendo swords, or the swords of power, all over the BaKongo culture and kingdom. 4 examples were dug up in a 2013 excavation of a church. This was at the Ndongondongo Mbanta church. So they found 4 swords, and one of them in particular was very fascinating. So this one appears to be from Europe and has characteristics which are tied to St. James. So as stated, St. James is the patron saint of Portugal. Now, St. James the Greater and the Order of Santiago, which is tied to St. James, they were known for protecting a pilgrimage route which went to a shrine or a site which is associated with St. James, because some people believe St. James the Greater was buried in Spain, or in, sorry, not in Spain, in the Iberian Peninsula. So they had paths that were going towards that. Now, in those paths, they had shells which are associated with St. James. So in certain iconography of Iberian Peninsula, you'll see the shell in there. The shell is representing St. James. So this sword that was found had a guard, or 2 guards, one on the left and one pointing up and one pointing down. Now, this is a sign of St. James the Greater, which was these types of swords were common or used by the Order of Santiago, members of that order. So this was buried with an elite member in this church, so likely hinting that he either may have been tied to the Order of Santiago, or he may have just purchased the sword and may have been a part of the Order of Christ in Congo, which is the one that was established there. But again, anything is possible. We don't quite know. But anyway, these swords again were very special to the BaKongo people as they tied to their original religion. Now, aside from just being prestigious symbols of authority, of power, and of status, the objects, the swords of power, were actually sacred and religious and tied to their cosmogram. Now, you may wonder how exactly. It's just a sword, right? Well, in the Kongo religion and culture, they believed in ancestral spirits or spirits from the ancestral realm called Nkisi. Now, these spirits would come into the world of the living and live in certain objects. For example, the swords of power and certain figurines would have Nkisi. So there's different types of Nkisi. Some of them are good, some of them are aggressive, some of them endue justice and so on. Some of them are tied to the sky, the rain. There's different types. There's a lot of nuance to it. But the ones that we're discussing are tied to the swords of power, hence the swords of power, the sword of authority and knowledge passed on from the ancestors. So what they believe in the Kongo religion and culture is the swords would be possessed by the ancestors or a spirit from the ancestral realm, a spirit which will help protect, help fulfill justice, help with punishing wrongdoers. So these swords were prestigious. They weren't really made to be used like in combat and so on, but they were used in certain cases, like for example, executing certain criminals. So the word Nkisi means sacred in Kikongo. So these were sacred spirits in these objects. So these sacred spirits assisted the leaders, the chiefs, with their knowledge, knowledge and power which they would have gained, through their experience in the cosmogram. Now, going into the cosmogram, we'll just clarify what it is and what's going on there. The BaKongo cosmogram is pretty much the circle of life. It's showing their circle of life and what was going on. So it goes anti-clockwise. It starts on the far left, which is Kulu. This is the birth of Muntu, or what I would say in my language, Munu, the birth of a person into the world of the living. So what you're seeing there on the cosmogram, the middle bit going horizontal, is called the Kalunga. This is the river that separates the world of the dead and the world of the living. So that's the separation line. So with people beginning here at Kulu, this is where life begins, when people are born into the world of the living. So at Kulu, the man or woman has been born into the world of the living, which is called Nkisi. So with this, they begin to mature, they begin to grow, and they go into the section called Takulas. This is where the person is at their highest. They have achieved, they've gained a lot of knowledge, they're experiencing the world. Yeah, it's like growing. It's like, what can I say, the apex of life when you're an adult. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, would you say you're between your 20s and 30s, the prime of your life? Then after that, it's all downhill. And it goes to Levembi, which is the time of departure, the time when obviously the human being is starting to go or transition to the world of the dead, the world of the ancestors. So with Levembi, that's once a person goes to Levembi, they're about to pass on from the Kalunga River and go on into the realm of the ancestors. Now, that cycle, if you look at the sun, it's pretty much showing the sun cycle. So the sun is rising from the east, it's going up, it's at midday, then it's setting towards the Atlantic Sea for the BaKongo. So the Kalunga, you can liken it to the Atlantic Sea. Then it goes down. Then around the world, it's somewhere else. Of course, the sun is, you know what I mean, it's at the opposite side of the world for them. Yeah. So if you follow the motion of the sun, like I said, it's the circle of life. Yeah. It's a bit like I think Lion King probably got this whole circle of life stuff from the BaKongo culture and likely other African cultures. It is kind of linked if you look at certain Bantu cultures. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, the Nkisi are spirits that have influence, that have knowledge, that have had that experience and power from the afterlife and also the new world. So the Nkisi are beings or spirits that link the world of the living and the world of the dead together. In certain figurines of the BaKongo, you see certain objects or anthropomorphic shapes, that look like this. Yeah, so with one arm up and one arm down. Yeah, so for example, the sword guard that you're seeing here with this anthropomorphic shape on this sword of power, it's tied to an Nkisi. So it's saying that this sword, or the spirit in this sword, has linked the two worlds, the world of the living and the world of the dead together. So that middle section of that cross on the cosmogram, yeah, that's what this symbolizes. You also see this on something called Nyombo, which is a funerary edifice. Yeah, this is what this is showing. So they used to bury some of their chiefs, some of their leaders in that position because these are powerful people. They're going into the afterworld, the ancestral realm, and they may return as new members of family or as Nkisi with their knowledge and power. Like especially for those that are kings and chiefs, they were known to have powerful Nkisi, powerful spirits, and their return would be very well impactful to the BaKongo and the people that are in the living. I've noticed as well in some illustrations that were made by Europeans. For example, when this missionary or Jesuit, or I'm not sure what it is exactly, visited this chief right here, you can see a BaKongo warrior is dancing in that motion. So it could be symbolizing that link that I'm saying, that the Nkisi has ties to the ancestral realm and the world of the living, and is very powerful. So again, the cross symbol, I mentioned it in my other video, is very important to the BaKongo. Yeah, this is how they adopted Christianity. They linked it to their own religion. Now, if you look at the coat of arms of the Kongo Kingdom, that looks European, right? It's just, yeah, European adaptation. But look closely to the bottom of that shield. You see an Nkisi. Yeah, you see a figurine, arm up, arm down, linking again the Kongo Kingdom to its roots. So though the Kongo Kingdom had knights, they had they adopted a different culture, they mixed it with their own. They still said, okay, no, we're not throwing this away. We still have our heritage and it's still important to us. The realm of the ancestors, all that, they still kept it, which is very interesting. Because like I said before, when I first got introduced to the Kongo Kingdom, it's Alfonso's letter that bothered me. I was like, why is this dude why is this dude begging the Portuguese? No, don't. Some of our people are getting taken. I'm like, you're king. Why are you letting them take him? Then I realized, no. Alfonso was trying to conquer or take claim to a region which wasn't his, the Ambundu region. I was like, oh, now I understand. But anyway, it's very fascinating. The Kongo culture and the religion, it's very fascinating. Like I said, the Nkisi, there's different types. Some of them are bad. Some of them are very helpful. Yeah, so the Nkisi, like I said, is meant to assist the chiefs, but for some chiefs they will be buried with their swords. Yeah, and they would go into the afterlife. Yeah, they're meant to have these objects. However, for others, some chiefs would, or chiefs, princes, what's called lords, governors, the kings as well, would leave their swords and pass them on generation by generations. So some Kongo people in the region today of Angola and so on still have the objects of their ancestors, like these swords, even though some of them are in very pretty bad shape, they still exist. So this just goes to show, yeah, though they became Europeanized, if that's a word, they still maintained their culture. They were still African, and they still knew who they were. And also, I believe this culture of the cosmogram may have gone into the New World as well. Certain dances where people are dancing in circles going around in anti-clockwise, it could be tied to this. And like I said, many other African cultures have similar beliefs. So it's just interesting, just fascinated me discovering this. Because when I saw this sword, you when you look at this sword, you'll just be like, oh, this just looks like a European sword. They just adopted the European sword, which is true, but they also linked it to their religion. So certain European swords have the guard that looks like an S shape, yeah, like that. They're linking that to their own religion. They're linking that, saying, okay, this is how certain figurines are made, certain funerary edifices are made, like mummified people, like that. They're wrapped in certain edifices like that, symbolizing their link to the world of the dead and the world of the living. And now they're saying, okay, these swords have these shapes. These shapes are tied to our religion, and now these are sacred shapes for the elite warriors, for the knights in the kingdom, for the chiefs in the kingdom, for the kings in the kingdom. It's just fascinating, man. I just found that very fascinating. But anyway, Yeah, man. Like I said, this episode was jam packed. Yeah, I tried to make it just a sword episode, but I couldn't just do that. I had to kind of cover the cosmogram a little bit, so you understand what's going on with that. And I had to cover, of course, the knights, the elite warriors of the Kongo Kingdom. Now, I don't know if these knights were wearing shining armor and stuff. I doubt it. In the Congo weather, oh my god, I doubt it. But then again, they did find a lot of jewelry, a lot of jewelry with gemstones and stuff. So I don't know. Who knows? But I believe the knights that went into Europe likely would have been wearing the armor if they had to go into combat. Many of them were just knighted in ceremonially because many of them were just ambassadors. I don't think they would have had military training. But then again, what do I know? There's probably many more. I only gave two examples, right? There's probably many more. Anyway, this was yeah, like I said, it took me a bit of time to research and try to get my head around the terminologies. Yeah, so for my people who speak Kikongo, I'm sorry, I know I butchered your words. I'm sorry. And for Portuguese people, I'm sorry as well. Like, yeesh, speaking different languages sometimes is tough, man. But with Kikongo, I should have, yeah, I don't really have an excuse because some of your words, I know what you're trying to say. It's like muntu. That means in my language we say munu. It's very fascinating how they're so linked. Like the word mwene for Lord, we have that as well. Our emperor was called Mwene Mutapa. Then if you look at East Africa, you see similar. You know what? I'll do a video on African titles, African royal titles, and how some of them are linked in certain language groups, as you can see. Uh, Otherwise, if I continue mumbling, I'll end up this video will be too long. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned something new. And again, for my subscribers, I'm very, very grateful, man. You guys are getting me there. Road to 1,000, man. I want to get to 1,000 by before my birthday, and that's on the 9th of June. Can it happen? You tell me. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Again, I'm sorry if I butchered your language. Correct me if I'm wrong. And yeah, if I've said anything wrong, because like I said, it took me a bit of time to research this. So if I've misinterpreted something, correct me if you can. Yeah, I don't mind. I'm always here for correction, and I want to make sure that the correct information reaches people. Anyway, thank you for watching. Yes, I am your chief. Good day.